Welcome to the Pro-Black Perspective, where black problems are addressed with black solutions. Your host tonight is the author of the Pro-Black Compendium and Zuberi and the Maroons of Ma'at, the Pan-African Nationalist, Oni. Oni, what are we discussing tonight?
Peace, family. You're tuning into the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio. Today is a good day, and it should be an exciting one, too. Today, you can participate just as I'm participating. I'll probably just limit it to text right now, but what we're going to do is we're going to go over this document that I shared once upon a time. This was in the Pro-Black Compendium. You can actually download this portion for free. Just come on the Discord, look at the free books, and you'll find this, right? Let me see if I can find the page a little bit better. All right, I'll just make it big, I guess. But this is page 16, the Pro-Black Compendium, and we're going to go over these different quotes and proverbs. There's not too many. If you have a comment on any, just let me know. You know, just say maybe Janitor Bruce. Or the African proverb or what have you, the lion proverb, and we can go over there. But I'll give you some background. Essentially, once upon a time, I had this organization, and every week we would meet up for a different subject. So this is the culture subject, but there was also the economic subject. There was the politics subject. And then there was the ecology, psychology, sociology, ideology. There were 8 in total. I left out ethics, but the reason, so this culture one was different from the psychology one. They both focused on consciousness, but psychology was more so how to improve on our condition, whereas culture is where we are, This is really critical for us to understand, and we review this every week, and I'm telling you, people benefited, people grew in consciousness, and I'm encouraging you as well to try this. So I have it available for free at the download section, but as well you could also purchase this, the Pro-Black Compendium, and you will do just as well with that. But before we get started, I'm going to remind you guys that I'm part of a podcasting network.
This is D Webb with the Harsh Reality Podcast, asking you to tune in where we tackle the news of the day that affects our community, only on KWAZ Radio.
Greetings, everyone. This is Koku from the Bitter Medicine Podcast, inviting you to tune in to the Bitter Medicine Podcast on KWAZ Radio. You are listening to the Pro-Black Perspective on KWAZ Radio.
All right, for those of you who might have said, wait a second, welcome to the learning curve, right? Learning curve is going to give us another one of those bumps, so I'm just waiting patiently for that. Either way, let's go right into it. We're going to go culture, consciousness through power, and this was a really powerful one. This is from John Edward Bruce. So he says, the moment, and the way how you do this, by the way, if you're doing this at home, and if you're doing this with a young person or anybody, you just take turns in a circle, right? And it could be between 2 people, so it's just taking turns between the 2 of you, of reading this passage and then saying what you think about it, and then inquiring for others, everybody in the circle, to say what they think about it. And this kind of helps us to know how we think about things and helps us to assist each other in thinking of things. But, so the way how I think about this is going to be different from the way you think about this, it's going to be different from somebody else, so on and so forth. But at the same time, we all come together with the same wisdom from our ancestors or our Nkobia, right? Or our elders. But let's go. This is John Bruce. The moment the men of any race permit the cheapening of their women, the pollution of their women, their race is doomed. For no race deserves to rise in the scale of being which does not do reverence to or respect the honor and good name of its women. Even among the lower animals, the males will fight to the death to protect the females. The African race can never hope to rise to any great eminence in the world when the spineless cowardice of its men permits the open degradation of its girls and young women by leprous and lecherous libertines of alien races. So this is Jonathan Bruce. Jonathan Bruce was Bruce Grit. Okay, Jonathan Bruce was a brother or an elder or an ancestor from like before Garvey's days. He was considered that black nationalist. He was a good brother. And he's explaining that this is before Garvey came, right? America. Black men or white men were making black women cheap. And I also want to, this is something that goes on to this day. Okay, this goes on to this day in the sense that, if you look at a rap video, I remember this one speaker, I think his name was Irritated Genie, right? Irritated Genie he was playing this rap video that I kind of liked. I didn't like it as a kid, but it might have been like a ludicrous video and what have you. And one of the scenes in this music video are these white guys dancing up on these black women. Like these white geriatrics dancing up on black women. And this is like a common theme in rap videos, hip hop videos, is that you have these white guys or these elderly white guys dancing up on black women. We also see this obviously in the Caribbean Day Parade, the West Indian Day Parade, where like random, sometimes Caribbean women will dance up on white guys. We also see this in Africa, where women will have sex with white guys. Oftentimes not even for money, but even with money, it's cheapening, right? It's a pollution. And men kind of just sit by and watch it, There is no people, one of the things I'm picking up on today now is that no people really respect desperation, cheapness, or a lack of self-determination. It's almost a given, right? For instance, one of the things that everybody knows is that you don't kiss a prostitute, right? You don't kiss a prostitute, period, right? Oh, peace, good morning, Bookman. Bookman says good morning. You don't kiss a prostitute. I mean, I know you're like, wait, what? Now, there's other things you don't do. Like you don't, do oral sex on a prostitute. You just don't do that. Other things include, but you also don't fall in love with one. You don't love one. You don't, and realistically speaking, if you're putting money into this sort of exchange, you don't even hold them in that high regard. It's an unusual person who would hold a prostitute in high regard. I'm not saying that I ever experienced a prostitute or I would hold them in low regard. I'm just saying that if you're paying for something, if you're paying to use someone, then you no longer put them on the same level as someone who presents themselves as more than a body. You don't do that. I can't say whether it's good or bad, whether it's moral or immoral. I'm simply pointing out if somebody says, hey, I will surrender my body to you, right? You don't then treat them like a delicate flower or something that you really respect. In reality, it is not a respectful thing to do. It is cheapening of themselves. It's a pollution of themselves. And you never really hold them in high regard. So, it's for us as black men, I think we really need to understand this. For us as black men to actually protect our women. It's for the women to obviously protect themselves as well. But at the end of the day, black men have to understand that they are supposed to be the first line of defense, right? The first line of defense. And remember, everybody, if you have any comments on this on any of this stuff, just drop a comment in the discussion, because this was actually a discussion exercise, right? This is a discussion exercise. So yeah, there's that cheapening, and I'm telling you, this is something that is really, really common, not only among African populations in the West, but African populations globally, where they are selling themselves for other people. In fact, one of the things, I think I might actually discuss it, but one of the things that I've picked up on really a long time ago was that a lot of times, even children are going to the beaches where they know the tourists are in order to prostitute themselves, And this is boys and girls. It's And the thing is this, that they do this with the full cognizance of their parents. Okay? They do this with the full cognizance of their parents. So, I mean, obviously my kid is pretty young, so hopefully it's not that young in age. But the idea is that, let's say he's able to go, independently to the beach, let's say at 10 years old, right? He would go to the beach to sleep with unfortunately, at best case it would be a woman, right? But anyway, he would go to the beach. But like, again, when you're in desperate situation, it's whoever's paying, right? So he would go to the beach and do all that, and then I would just sit by and welcome him home and say, "Hey, dinner's on the table." Like, no, like there's no, like that right there is a sickening. It's a pathetic situation for the parent as well as a child. Fortunately I could say, I'm not in that economic circumstance, but that also informs you how, culture, when we talk about culture, we also have to grasp that you have to provide for your peoples economically. Because if they're in this situation where they are being cheapened, where they are being purchased, right? It's on you, because I mean, I can't say that I could ever do that, because I'm not ever with all due respect, I have no intention of being in that economic situation. Now, of course, if America were to collapse and my money were to be useless, hopefully I could navigate in this what they call post-apocalyptic existence. Nevertheless, and of course I wouldn't necessarily equate America falling with an apocalypse. Either way, that's just what the term that they call, or dystopian they call it, right? Either way, yeah, we really have to concentrate and focus on how we could do that. Because even now, what I'm thinking is that if we were to say, let's socially organize, let's nation build, we have to seriously consider the reality of making it so that women do not even need to be exposed to alien races. Okay? We have to really consider that reality. One of the things that we don't do inside the black community, or that we really very incompetently do, is that we tend to make women overexposed to the alien races. Like, they're overexposed in the sense that they're more highly employed. They have better jobs. They have so on and so forth. Sometimes they're left alone. A woman is left alone to care for her family with only the government, aid to come in. And he says, hey, you know what? I could overlook the dirty dishes, or hey, I can, or the butcher who's like, hey, I can give you some meat I can give you some more meat if you take a little more meat. You get what I'm saying? So we're really doing horribly in that sense. Anyway, so let's keep going. Until lions have their own historians, tales of the hunt shall always glorify the hunter. Now, this is something that we tend to look at and we just say it, yeah, you see, they always blah, blah, blah. But this is common sense. This is common sense in the sense that why would the hunter glorify the lion? And why would the historian not glorify themselves or their people? Because they're telling the story. Again, it's his story, right? But they're telling the story. And his story, by the way, is not even like a black thing. Like, I legit was sitting in social studies in high school or something. I think it was a white teacher, and they were like, it's his story. But anyway. But historians, they're supposed to glorify their own people. They're supposed to tell it from the perspective of their own people, because one of the things that they're doing is they're writing to their own people. They're writing to their own people for the benefit of their own people. One of the things that I think we have to grasp, another thing, right? This is a really deep document, so make sure you guys pick up the Pro-Black Compendium, right? But one of the things that we have to grasp is that people go through long periods of training in order to get into the position to actually write books. And they go through this training at the behest or as a beneficiary of their own societies and civilizations. Okay? So the historian in let's go to the Fanon book we were talking about. The historian in Algeria, right? The French historian in Algeria goes through 10 years of primary and secondary education in France, paid for by France, okay? Or paid by the French people. Then they go through 5 years of doctoral study or undergrad or post tertiary school. So maybe 5 or even you would say 8 years of tertiary school with French at the expense of French people. And then they go over to Algeria where they're contracted to write a history book, right? Or study the history, but they're beholden to the French. And so when they write this book, and it says all these good things, all these flowery things about the French because they grew up in the French culture. They know the French culture. They don't really know the Algerian people. They're trying to study the Algerian people, but they study it from the basis of having been indoctrinated and schooled and a beneficiary of the French system for 18 plus years. Right? They have a French wife. They have French children. They have French parents. They have French, so on and so forth. They go to Algeria. They look at what's going on, and they see that the French are trying. That the Algerians are trying to kick out the French, and they're trying to kick out everything that they enjoy and they love and they cherish. And then you expect them to write a history that's flowery for the Algerians. And you say, hey, look, they're biased. They're biased, and they have a white bias and the white privilege and white supremacy and blah 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 blah. Instead of just recognizing that you. Right? You, or in this case the Algerian, but let's go to an African country, let's say Rwanda or whatever, right? You, the Rwandan, right, should create your own historians. You shouldn't concern yourself with what another people are writing for their history. The imagination you have that they should just write the true story. They should write it from an objective, outside perspective is ludicrous. And sure, they can say that they're trying to be objective and so on and so forth. They can say that that's their intent, that's their endeavor, and you could call them on that. But it's not even possible for a human being to be objective. You understand? It's not even possible. Unfortunately, somebody had once said that they think that I'm biased towards men. Okay, like whenever I hear like a woman and a man dispute, I they say that I sometimes take the side of the man, but like really I don't really take the side of the man. But what I do is I kind of explain the male psychology versus the female psychology because they're two different psychologies. But to a woman, it would seem like I'm defending the man, as to say that or like I would empathize or sympathize or even understand a man more than a woman. So in the sense that let's say a man loses his occupation or whatever, right? Or even like say a man is sitting around the house playing video games or whatever, right? I get that, don't let any women hear that, right? But I get that. So Walter Wilder says intense research methodology. I get that in the sense that, yeah, that's what men want to do to cool down. Just like if a woman is like, hey, I'm going to go drink some wine and watch a movie, and binge watch movies. It's like, I don't get that. You know what I mean? or like if a woman wants a pet. I don't get that at all. I know there are some dudes who like pets, but they're like, hey, maybe I want a dog that I can run out with. Some women are like, hey, I want a pet that I could just I could just feed. I could feed and they really don't do anything. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I don't get it. But, there's a psychological difference between people who do that. So what I mean to say is that you can't really be objective, because let's say if I see somebody with like for instance, I see somebody with a python as a pet, right? To me, that's stupid. To me, that's just dumb, right? And to most of us, that's just dumb. But to people who have pythons as pets, it makes sense, right? Or so if the story comes out that the python, eats the person in their sleep, right? Right? I shouldn't laugh at that, but still, if it comes out with that the person, so most of us are like, yeah, well, that dumbass had a python. But people who have pythons say, well, he should have fed it more. You can't be objective because you are a subjective individual. And so demanding that, other people go through this educational process that you did not pay for. Okay? Or that if you really believe that you as a French citizen had paid your fair share of taxes and therefore you should be able to command every single historian that comes out of the institution, which is poppycock. But if you really believe that, your contribution wasn't that much. If you're going by percentages, like maybe they should just it would be like 1% or 0.01%. And if it's 0.01%, then maybe sure they could put down one sentence in their history book saying, black people are right. But like generally speaking, no. You have to create your own historians. And that's it. So let's see. Let's go to the next one. Bats who think they are birds are in for a great surprise. That's another African proverb. I'm not trying to get you guys to preview the next one. So bats who think they are birds are in for a great surprise. And that's like really the story of black folk. Walter Wilder says, I have the Book of Power. Great book everyone should read. Shout out to Walter Wilder. If I could highlight post, that's the one, right? That's the one. Anyway, but thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad that people have purchased some of that book. I'm going to work on a puzzle book now. Like a word hunt book, only because I could write the algorithm. I'm supposed to really write the self-help book, but I feel like it's going to take a little longer than programming a whole nother book. So I'm just going to do this program. So hopefully you guys can check that out too. All right. But yeah, the Book of Power is definitely A1. This right here is the pro-black compendium. And there's the other one is the Zabiri. So make sure you guys check out the lineup, but definitely check out the pro-black or the Book of Power. It's really good. All right. So anyway, bats who think they are birds are in for a great surprise. And that's pretty much us in the West. Us in the West, we kind of we think we're white folk, we think we're white folk. But we're we always get shocked that it's not. It's like you go to, it's like we're just surprised that other people don't like us, but you have to, it goes back to the cheapening part, I think it's very, very hard. I put this on Twitter just yesterday, and I put it it was from the Bitter Medicine podcast. Yesterday he had Shoot the Breeze, and there was this video clip he played of this judge. So this white judge is just, she gets her house burglared, right? I think she has to defend her house from being burglared. I wasn't really sure. But basically, they catch on this security camera this black person who was trying to burglar her house, which is obviously not the best thing in the world. And so her and her family, or either maybe just her, just repeatedly call this black person an N-word, right? And, now everybody's like, hey, you got to call for a resignation, and how she's a judge, and so she's a judge, and she's using the N-word. Imagine how she rules on cases, blah, blah, blah. But it's realistically speaking, no one is going to, well, first off, hardly anybody respects you when you're trying to steal from them. But no one's going to respect you in general if you forfeit your self-determination to them. The very fact that black people are saying, hey, she's a judge, she has authority, she has power over me, that's why she shouldn't be working there because she should be kind to me. It's you should have power over yourselves. You should judge yourselves. You should have self-determination for yourselves, but instead you gave it to another people, and then you demand that they respect you. But nobody respects you for that. If like I said about the prostitution example, because it's a recurring theme in the African canon, right? If somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I really need money and I'll do anything for it," you don't respect them, and you may well degrade them because they said they'll do anything. They reduced themselves below money. And it's not to say that, and it's not to say that, money is not something valuable that people need, right? But you have to have dignity. And this is one of the things about if you really go into this whole capitalism or this whole capital versus labor conversation that I have sometimes. But, one of the things that labor does is labor goes to capital and says, hey, I'll do anything for money. Now, sometimes labor would say, no, like a union would say, no, we won't do anything. We'll do X, Y, Z for money, right? And that's respectable, right? Not to say that there's no conflict with that. That's respectable. But here's the issue. When your economy is destroyed, right, which is what the Westerners would do, what the capitalists would do, when your economy is destroyed, your people are reduced to, I will do anything. I'll take any amount of money to do anything. And nobody respects you for that. You say, yeah, I'll work 10 hours a day for $10. That's what they do in the third world. Well, not the third, I shouldn't say third world, but that's what they do in the Caribbean. That's what they do in Africa. Yeah, I'll do that. Why? Because we haven't provided for our people. We haven't provided for our people enough so that they can say, you know what? Yeah, I mean, I could definitely go into those mines, but you're going to have to pay me. You're going to have to give me something to justify why I would go into those mines. You understand? Because like I said, I have the fortune to not necessarily be so desperate, not necessarily be poor or what have you. And because of that, if somebody said, hey, only go to the mines, go to the mines and dig up gold, they're going to have to give me an amount. They're going to, I'm going to negotiate. But this is what we need to expand for our people. And this is why you would want to, let's collectivize our wealth or collect our wealth or just, get capital, even if it's just for ourselves, in order that we can employ our people so that they are no longer in this position where they are being underpaid, where children, you look at the videos of the Congo, children are hiding from cameras because they know they're too young to be down risking their lives for pennies. Risking their lives for pennies. But again, one of the things, if I could tie it back into bats who think they are birds for a surprise, these people, the kids, the 12-year-old, you think that they're different from me? No. You think that when this white boy goes to Africa and he says, hey, you know what, this kid is Congolese and Oni's an American, or Oni's a Jamaican. You think when push comes to shove, right? If let's say I become economically misfortunate or unfortunate or disfortunate or whatever you want to call it, right? I'm no longer where I am now, right? And I end up in the Congo, and of course I'm upstanding, I'm intelligent, I'm so on and so forth. But they might say, hey, he's flexible. You think these capitalists are saying, hey, you're a good man, come be come do, you can't, you're too good for this work. You think he ever looks at you with your black skin and says you're too good for this work? Because you're not. That child is you. You are that child. You're one people. And the way and you don't think that you're a bird when you're a bat. Don't think that you're above any of your people when you're because I tell you, one of the things you remember when you're growing up is that a lot of homeless people will tell you, oh yeah, I used to have this job, I used to have this house, I used to have this career. A lot of times you hear that. Okay? They're like, oh yeah, I got a whole family. I had a whole family, so on and so forth. A lot of times you hear that, but you're not getting it. That the way the world is going, that may be you. Now, obviously, a lot of people don't happen to. But, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of people don't get hit by cars. Okay? A lot of people don't get hit by cars, but some people are getting hit by cars. Now, let's go to the greatest weapon used against Africans is disorganization. That's it. The greatest weapon used against Africans is disorganization. That's Marcus Garvey. I want you to understand this, right? That white people have millions of organizations around the world. Okay, they have millions of organizations. Every corporation is an organization. Every business is an organization. Every company is an organization. Every church, every police station, every police force, every nation, everything is an organization, and then you have to compare how many you have against them. When you understand the judicial system is an organization, remember, organization is something that I would say, ultimately, an organization benefits its members, and it probably has a hierarchy. Okay. So like the police force, there's the police officers, and they have the police chief, they have the police captain, they have the mayor, so on and so forth, right? The nation has its president, has its president aides, has its secretary of state, has its secretaries, so on and so forth, the vice president, so on and so forth, has the writing aides, this legal aid, blah, 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 blah. It's a whole institution, it's a whole organization with a hierarchy. President on top, or the mayor's on top, or the CEO's on top, or the board of directors is on top, right? And all that kind of stuff. It has, and it benefits everybody there. So when you go to work, you are just an employee who is reaping benefits from that organization. You understand? The benefit being that you're getting a paycheck when other people who are not in that organization, who are not employed by that organization, are not going to get a paycheck, right? But then you got to ask yourself, what hierarchy are you in as an African person? What hierarchy are you in as an African person? Huh? What hierarchy are you in as an African person? I want you to understand. I actually got to turn off my my ringtone apparently. But what organization are you in, and what black person do you answer to? Because if you're not ever answering to a black person and getting benefits from answering to a black person, right? That's where you are failing. Because white people, every day, they're answering to other white people. You understand? Every day they're reaping benefits from other white people. They're reaping benefits for other white people. And here's a kicker. Every day you're doing the same. You're saying, hey, you know what? Because again, remember what working is. Remember what labor is. Labor is approaching capital and saying, hey, I can make you more money. Give me a little bit and I'll give you more. And I'll work with the people you tell me to work with. And I'll work how you tell me to work so that you can get more money. And you just got to give me a little bit. That's what labor is. So that's what we are, most of us, 98% of us, let's say, or at least 98% of us who are working, right? That's what we do. We say, hey, how can I enrich you, Mr. Charles or Miss Charlie or whatever? How can I enrich you? And then you ask yourself, hey, when do we go to a black person and say, how can we enrich you? Right? So we're going to the next one. Walter Wilder says Marcus Garvey said that in the time of economic trouble, every white man has the potential to be a Klansman. Of course. We have to realize, I think Marcus Garvey was so poignant and so insightful in the sense that that's what white people are supposed to do. Okay? They're supposed to be Klansmen in times of economic trouble. Okay? They're supposed to be. They're supposed to be looking out for themselves in times of economic trouble. They're supposed to be suppressing other people who are doing better than them in times of economic trouble. And this is the thing that a lot of us do not understand. This is the thing a lot of us don't understand because we believe, hey, white people are pretty nice. They're pretty chill. They're pretty cool right now. You go to a white person and you tell them, hey, the other day I was at this store and they refused to serve me. They're like, what? They refused to serve you? You know? But here's the thing I want to point out too. Like when I was in Africa and like just generally speaking, let's say I'm going to line up, I was going to the UPS store. UPS store for some reason, well not for some reason, but because we're social distancing in New York, we have to line up behind each other. And so we end up lining up outside in the cold and all that kind of stuff. And then, sometimes a white boy would come on the line, right? It's mostly a black area, but sometimes a white boy would come on the line. And I could understand if he said, you know what, I would rather just walk in front of the line. Why am I lining up behind a bunch of N-words? I can understand if he thought that. Because I'm not to say that I was thinking that. Like, why am I lining up a bunch of But like, I understand that I would love to cut in front of the line. And so these white people, what they do, like when you understand what quote unquote white privilege is, or what quote unquote white power is, that they said to themselves, look, you know what? We're going to make this system where we all line up for, whatever services we want. But we're not going to line up behind a bunch of people who didn't really contribute to this society in the way that we have. Or who didn't win the war in the way that we did. Do you understand? Who didn't conquer the land like we have. We're not going to line up behind them. And even if it wasn't for that, if they say, hey, look, I actually have money here. I actually have, because I'm not going to tell you, like when I was in Africa, and sometimes you say to yourself, I actually have money. Like, why are you waiting so long? Like, why is my service taking so long? There was one place that really took long service, right? Or why is it that, why do I need to line up behind people? Now, you might say, hey, well, that's a little bit bigoted. That's a little bit, self-centered, a little self-interested, and sure. The reality is that you have this one life, and you have to understand this. You have this one life, right? You are this individual, right? And you have to look out for yourself, and you have to look out for your people. You have to look out for your family, and there's an order to who you look out to. There's an order to who you look out for. In a stream of strangers, right? Like for instance, you're with a group of strangers, right? Or even say it this way, let's say unfortunately you're in a school, right? You're in a school shooting environment, right? Let's say you're the new kid. You just came in, next day some kids shooting up the school. You don't know nobody, right? You have to just run. You just have to look out for yourself. You can't do much. Now say this. You have a group of friends you like, right? Then you look out for yourself and then you go look for your particular friends, your particular clique. Now say you got a woman or a man or whatever, you have a partner, you're a romantic partner. Then in that circumstance, you look out for yourself, but you may even, if you're a man, right? If you're a real man, right? You may even put yourself in harm's way for the woman. But you're not going to put your harm up. And maybe if you're really chivalrous, you could put yourself in harm's way for any and every woman. Sure. If you're very, very chivalrous, right? You're very, very chivalrous, right? But all things considered, the idea that, hey, you know what? No. Put yourself behind everybody else, right? Is just a mentality, I would even say, infused by the Christians, right? Or the Westerners who are trying to subjugate you, to tell you, yeah, put yourself on the back burner. Put yourself on the back burner. Don't look out for yourself. Look out for me. Look out for me before you look out for yourself. Right? And that's just, that's not how things are supposed to function. Now, I should say this, that it is a policy in organizations. Right? So if you get into an organization that you believe in, right, then absolutely you would put the organization ahead of you. Because the organization, if it's really good for you, it is benefiting the whole family, the whole nation, and everybody a part of you. But this is where it becomes tricky in the sense of the racial relationships, right? Because when you're in America, right? If you're a white man, right? You don't put the black person ahead of you, because that's not part of the national model. You understand? There's no reason. Now, if it's the president of the United States and you're a white man, sure, you say, hey, look, we gotta protect the president. If it's the vice president, the judge, the police officer, whatever it is, right? If it's that a part of your organization, yeah, you put them ahead of you by occupation, sure. But then you say to yourself, what if this black person who's not the police chief, he's not even the police officer, he's not the president, he's not the secretary, he's not the store owner, you know, and yet you may well be one of those, and that's something that we have to understand. Again, I want people to understand you don't want to be a minority, and you just don't want to be a minority. But anyway, let's see. It said not only are whites kicking us, they are telling us how to react to being kicked. And of course, and like I said, white people, this is Steve Biko. Steve Biko is a great brother, right? I put their description inside of the back of the book too, by the way. But yeah, they're kicking us and they're telling us how to react to being kicked. And of course, if you are going to listen to the people who are kicking you, they will tell you they're not kicking you, or they'll tell you how to react to being kicked. They'll tell you, hey, don't get violent. Yeah, sure, I kicked you, but don't get violent. Because why are you listening to them? They are as perplexed. They're as perplexed as I am. If I punch somebody in the face, and then I say, hey, you want to know what to do? And they say, yeah, sure. Well, tell me what I should do. Right? I'll be like, what? I'll take advantage of that. If you want to be silly enough to listen to somebody, then take advantage of that. I'm not going to say that, there's no domestic violence situations where people are talked down from domestic violence, because that happens regular. But the men are the men who do that, or even the women who do that, are as surprised as anyone. If a woman throws a pot at the back of my head, right? Like if I'm playing video games and I'm just, or reading a book or whatever I'm doing, and she just flings a pot at my head, right? And says, "Oh, baby, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that." And I'm like irate, and she's like, "No, it's good. Don't worry, I'll blah 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 blah." And then I just say, "Oh yeah, well don't worry, babe, I forgive you." Right? She's happy in the mother, cause she just got away with assault. You understand? She just got away with assault. And you can't blame her for doing that. You the only dummy listening to her. You know what I mean? And then when she throw another, and then when she does it again, you're gonna be like, you're gonna hear the same story and do it again and again and again until finally you got a concussion and you don't even know what you did last time. You don't even know what you did last time. I'm telling you, like at some point you can't even blame white folk. Like I said, they looking out for their own self-interest. You can't even blame white folk. You can't. Cause it's like yeah, what you like one of the things that one of the unfortunate things about getting deeper into the real story, the true story, the consciousness, is that you begin to see the white man as another individual, another group, another race. You begin to see it not so much from the victim mindset, the victim perspective, but you begin to see it from well, what would you do in that situation? Now, obviously, white folk are a lot meaner, terrible, a lot, so on and so forth. But they still have this logical and emotional and self-interested pattern, right? Where you say to yourself, well, yeah, if I want a seat on a bus, right? Would I, if I felt myself to be better than other people, and they do, right? If I felt like I created this country, and they did, right? If I felt like this, would I stand up on a bus, or would I give my seat to a black person? And you might say, well, yeah, but that's a black woman. You're talking about Rosa Parks. If you're talking about Rosa Parks, you might be like, yeah, well, that's a black woman. But he says to himself, yes, black woman. You understand? And even if you were to say, hey, look, if we don't really like black folk and so on and so forth, right? Would I publicly say, you know what, I'm going to treat this black woman with due respect if I don't like black people? If I say black people are not deserving, if I say black people don't deserve to be here, and this is a thing that we at least I'm coming to a grip with, is this reality that if we look at it from obviously you can't be objective, right? But if you look at it from a perspective of their subjectivity, then from their subjectivity, not ours, because see, from us we're like, hey, that's a black woman, you should give your seat up for her, right? But for them, it's like, yeah, that's a black woman. You understand? And no, I shouldn't even sit next to her. And no, she shouldn't sit in front of me. None of them should. And it might be like, oh, I don't agree with that. You might say, I don't agree with that, but you're thinking of it from your perspective. And not from the perspective of somebody who honestly doesn't even like these people. Doesn't even like your people. I do like that Klansman comment. I just want to say that, yeah, white people, like one of the things that I put out, I can't remember if it was this book or it just in general on my website, was that you have to judge, like when people are, you got to look at how people are when they're in power, when things are looking good for them. You know? When things are looking good for you, you can relegate the responsibility of subjugating another people to other people. So you only need the police to subjugate people. But let's say, but like we all understand that, let's say with the BLM example, where when black folk were getting quote unquote rowdy, right? When white people were under the impression that black folk were getting rowdy, a lot of them volunteer. A lot of them come out of the woodworks and say, hey, let's keep this peace. Let's keep what we had. Let's keep this police brutality. You understand? They may say, hey, I don't like what happened with George Floyd, but whatever alternative you're proposing, you have to run it by us, because if it does not reach our approval, yes, we will attack. Right now, we're not attacking you. Right now, we sympathize with you. But you have to follow our system and our rule. And we support the rulers and the system. You understand? And again, like I said, you can't blame them. Because why would they not want their own rule and their own system? It's really, the issue is that you don't want your own rule and your own system. Or your people don't want their own rule and their own system. So Bitter Medicine Podcast says, true story. Walter Wilder says, Dr. Amos Wilson said that you cannot wake someone up who is pretending to be asleep. I wish we were pretending to be asleep. I wish we were pretending to be asleep. I'll be about asleep. All right. Learning Curve says there's no requirement to be a decent human being. Everyone protects their own. Of course, there's no requirement for anything. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to eat, but you'll die. You don't have to eat, but like there's no requirement for anything. People, what they do is they create systems to benefit their own people, to benefit themselves, to benefit their families, to benefit their nations. And if they feel like you're not a part of their nation, they will subjugate you. They will only tolerate you so much as you are obedient. And this is the way of the world. Walter Wilder says white people are organically nationalistic like the Japanese. We should be the same. Everybody is supposed to be nationalistic. The issue, and this is one of the things that I said about African American scholarship, right? African American Pan-Africanism, African American, so on and so forth, is that because the African American is one of the largest demographics without a nation, okay? One of the largest, loudest demographics without a nation, they like they're just the most anti-nationalistic, like they like a lot of times they talk about nationhood and they talk about nation, but it's like there's no real practice of it because they're in somebody else's nation, but yes, white people are, and then they confuse us by saying, hey, why are these people so nationalistic? Why are they looking up like, aren't we Americans? Like, kind of, kind of, you're citizens by constitution, maybe by amendment, you're not really the citizens. I mean, yes, you are a citizen, but that's because we want your labor and your taxes and so on and so forth. But we always just really wanted your labor. We don't really want much else from you. We don't want you to own capital. We don't want you to be in charge anywhere. We want your labor. That's what white folk are saying, right? But yeah, organically not next. So it's like, you know, a lot of times, yeah, you have to, you should be about your nation, and your nation should be a majority of you. So if you guys remember, I have this thing I'm planning on going over next year, where we just discuss the different black nations on this planet, you know, alphabetical order, right? I mean, Haiti's going to jump ahead because I'm writing it as IT. But all right, so it's no use whatever preaching wisdom, you must inject it into the blood. Now remember, guys, if you have any comments on any of these things, just type it out and we'll see. So it's no use preaching wisdom, you must inject it into the blood. You know, this is the thing I realized too. This was like an old thing, is that you can't really change people's minds per se. Like through preaching, you really have to inject it, you know? You have to, and what that means, obviously, is that it has to be really, really intense. You know, it's like take it for example like this. No matter how many videos Tariq Nasheed releases, a lot of us are not going to buy it. You know? No matter what. It doesn't matter how he presents it. It doesn't matter if it's, you know, blah, blah, blah. We're just going to be like, yeah, no, that's not right. You know? Don't think, and this is the thing I want you to realize too, is that the people of the FBA crowd, or whatever you want to call it, right? But the people of other schools of thought, it's the same way. Like the way how you look at Tariq Nasheed, the way you look at radical black feminism, the way you look at ADOS, and the way you look at the socialists or whatever, the way you look at other people is the way other people look at you. And you may think, hey, I'm more reasonable. You may think, hey, I'm more reasonable, and therefore they should look at it my way. They're not going to. You know, the other day, this guy says something terrible about Marcus Garvey. And somebody said, hey, you know, you should debate him. And I said, look, you're not, like, you can't debate other people who have their mindsets fixed on nonsense. You know, like, you can't debate them because it's not going to work. This is from ancient Africa, by the way. This is like an ancient African idea, right? I mean, I think a white guy transcribed it, I'll be honest, but, like, this white guy was looking through like a lot of African wisdom and saying, hey, this is one of the conclusions I came to. This is what they believed, that there's no use preaching wisdom, and it must go deeper than that. It must really like hit them on the biological core. So that's one of the things you really want to focus on. And this is why this exercise over here is something that you want to engage with people on an actual level. You know, I actually saw like some people having a conversation on socialist ideas, and one of them was like, oh wait, you know what, I actually haven't thought of this deeply enough, you know, but you have to really go into a deep like you really have to get into that, you know, you really have to go deep with other people, because if you don't, if you were to just if the same conversation was just going to be, hey, yeah, no, my position is this, it'd be like, okay, well, we had different positions, right? You really have to go deep. And this is why, like, even lectures, even what have you, you know, that's not as good as really intimate educational experiences, right? But of course, it has to be with, like I said, with people who are humble and not necessarily set in their ways, because it's just it's never gonna work. Anyway, so on the first day of the arts and crafts class, I had nothing really prepared. So this is Sada Shakur. So I asked everyone to draw themselves. When I looked at the drawings, I felt faint. All of the students were black, yet the drawings depicted a lot of blonde-haired, blue-eyed, little white children. So this is Asada Shakur talking about black children being asked to draw themselves. Just draw what you look like, what your family looks like. And all of them draw blonde-haired, blue-eyed, white children. You know? And it kind of reminds you of the doll test. Kofi says greetings, so greetings, Kofi. It reminds you of the doll test where a black youth would say, hey, which doll is ugly, which doll is pretty? And they would pick the white doll to be pretty and the black doll to be ugly. You know? One of the other reasons why is because when it comes to the media that children are consuming, right? This is why it's important. Like I said, I'm going to do this puzzle book. It's important that you guys get it. It's important that you guys get all the books, because you're really doing yourself a disservice when you do not have black books and black images in the house. You know? Because children will see themselves in, not just children, people will see themselves in images. And they'll see ideality in images. You know, when you have that white Jesus on your wall, like Marcus Garvey pointed this out, but like realistically, like I want to say maybe, very frequently, people with white Jesuses on their wall date white people, marry white people, right? Or they don't marry at all, right? A lot of times that white Jesus makes you open to, yeah, well, you know, that's my ideal version of a man. Or that's my ideal version of myself. I want the counterpart to that. You know, there was this one guy, you know, I actually stopped talking to him, to be honest. But good friend, close friend, right? He was a Christian. We would always talk about black power stuff, but he was like, hey, I can't rock with this because as a Christian, I can't really be, racist. I can't be racial. I can't look at white people, so on and so forth. I know everybody can be redeemed, so on and so forth. And, I teach him, how to mac, how to flirt, because, when you teach, right? No, I'm joking. That's not how the quote go. But anyway, he was like my wingman. I would clown him because he wasn't as good as me and all that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, he finally learns, how to speak to women and all that kind of stuff. He has a few black women he's talking to and all that. But then this white woman comes along, right? And she's this deep Christian, as far as he can tell, she's maybe 30 plus, virgin, according to him, and, oh yeah, I won't have sex until marriage and blah, 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 blah. And she's I never met her because I don't really care to, right? But as far as I can tell, she wasn't like bad looking for a white woman, right? And all that, but it's like this man, right, has this black consciousness, has this black knowledge. But one of the things I always noticed when I went to his house, because he lived near me, was he had that white Jesus on his wall. And I point out to him, yeah, you got a white Jesus on your wall. Marcus Garvey says no white images, so on and so forth. And notwithstanding this, yes, he goes through all this intelligence, all this knowledge. Sometimes he was at my meeting, sometimes not, right? Most times not, but sometimes he was. All of this stuff. And then he says, you know what? Because I'm following this Christian way, I want a Christian woman, and this white woman is the ideal Christian woman. And then he married her. You understand? And that's it. That's the story. It's you. This is what you're giving to your people. Because like when you sit down and you say, hey, watch this cartoon, watch Teen Titans, watch Steven Universe, watch whatever. All these little white kids, right? And then what happens is your kid, when they say, hey, man, draw yourself. Draw who you think you are. Who do you think you are? When your imagination goes and you're in the world of Steven Universe and you're in the world of whatever, Craig from the Creek or whatever, right? You're in this world of this cartoon universe, right? And everybody's white. You understand? I knew this one woman who said, look, she's a cool sister. She has a kid about my age. She says that when he consumes media, the kids don't even have colored eyes. The kids don't even have colored hair. All the media she gives her kids are black people. You understand? What I used to do is I say, hey, look, son, you want to learn like some language, blah, blah, blah. I mean, obviously there's animal things. I think she said even the animals don't even have like colored eyes, But like, I don't go that far. But I say, look, here's this thing from Kenya, Achillean kids. That's what I get. I give my boy Achillean kids. You understand? I give him the episodes. Most of the episodes are just black people with animals, right? African animals, right? But that's what it is. That's what you do. So that when he says, "Hey, I'm imagining something," he says, "Look, I imagine I'm a Swahili speaking. I'm in a Swahili speaking world. English and Swahili." Anyway, our environment makes us think white, and some of us think white so persistently that we haven't time to think black. This is John W. Bruce, and this is like one of the things that I want you to we really have to grasp. This is John W. Bruce again, by the way. But yeah, our environment makes us think white. And some of us think white so persistently that we haven't time to think black. There are kids who are saying, hey, white is beautiful. When you go to the church, when you go to the school, when you go to the public school system, one of the things that children do is they cry. They're going to they're leaving their parents behind, they cry, right? But the thing that you as a parent are subconsciously saying is this: trust this white lady. Listen to this white lady. Obey this white lady. Trust this white system. Listen to this white system. Obey this white system. Don't do bad in this white system or you're going to have to answer to me. Right? This white system is your lifeline. If you fail at this white system, you will fail at life. So who is the power here? Who is the authority here? Who are you submitting to? And then you move a little forward and you say to yourself, this same institution is going to teach you to think white. Because the institution was designed for white people. Or it was designed to subjugate white people. Okay, it was designed to subjugate white people. And your black ass in there, right? It was designed to subjugate white people, but make them proud of themselves, at least. Make them proud of themselves. Not too proud that they're going to own capital, not too proud that they're going to be business owners, but make them proud of themselves. Hey, you know what? You come from a long line of pioneers, of revolutionaries, of thinkers, of warriors, of this. You come from that long line. That's what it's teaching white kids. It says, hey, you know what? This is, think like an American, think like a white person. And then you go sit in that same class, and you're like Beethoven and Newton and Einstein and Hobbes and Descartes and the Golden Revolution and the French Revolution and so on and so forth. And you go through and you do all that and then you say to yourself, yeah, man, if I was I want to be like Napoleon and do so on and so forth. And here you are. What do you know? And your parents put you there. So what do you know about Dessalines? What do you know about John Edward Bruce? What do you know about Leonard Jeffries? What do you know about Marcus Garvey? Your parents put you inside of a system and said, go obey this, go learn this, go master this, go understand this, or you're going to fail, or you're not a good person, or you're not smart, or you're stupid, or all that kind of stuff. They put you there. You get it. Kofi says, can't be a Christian and pro-black. Yeah, exactly. Like I said, it don't even make any sense. It don't even make, you're clinging on to this white Jesus, and it's terrible. And people don't understand that, but it is what it is. This is a good one from Leonard Jeffries. I like Leonard Jeffries. Whoever controls the images controls your self-esteem, self-respect, and self-development. Whoever controls the history controls the vision. Black people, I want to ask you this very sincerely. Do you control the images? A lot of times you guys complain about commercial rap. I got into a little bit of trouble on Twitter for that. I can't front. But anyway, you guys compare about commercial rap. It's just so stupid at this point. Many of your people are submitting to commercial rap. Many of your people are submitting to commercialized images. And the thing is this, that you play along with it. You submit to it too. I made some friends in Africa. Some of them are like, hey, you know what? I just watched the Spider-Man movie. Hey, I really like watching Spider-Man. I really like watching Marvel films. I really like so on and so forth. This is all the way in Africa. You understand? Sometimes you will have your own people producing the. It's not like it's white people in blackface. Because once upon a time, white people did blackface to make fun of you. They did blackface to make fun of you. They were like, hey. And then here's the thing about the blackface thing. Black folk would go and participate in minstrel shows too. They call them minstrel shows. They participate in minstrel shows too. And then black people would watch the minstrel shows. And it was perplexing to white people. It was perplexing to white people. And black people were like, hey, at least it's a white person. At least it's a black person. We get to support a black actor. And now you have minstrel shows every damn direction you look. And you know what you still do? You still support it. whoever controls the history. And the thing is this, that why people don't really control the history is just that you don't bother to go to the historians of our own people. So I do outline different history books in this book, and as well, I do outline this book. So, like, do yourself a favor and really indulge in the programs laid out before you. Really indulge in these intellectual programs, because if you don't do it, what makes you think other people will? So anyway, education transmits natural philosophy, otherwise it's miseducation. So this is the African blood siblings core tenet. So like I told you, the ABS is African blood siblings. That's inside the title of this video, if you were wondering. And yeah, let's see something. SK says the white man was determined to destroy black male authority. I mean, look, the white man already kidnapped us. Well, as soon as he kidnaps you, you didn't really have any authority. You know what I mean? As soon as you're kidnapped, you don't really have authority. If you're kidnapped and then after you're freed, you're still hanging around, right? You just, I don't know what. I don't know what to tell you. You know? And I mean, like, if you're still hanging around because you remove the other person from power, that's one thing. You know, like in Haiti. Like, you still hanging around in Haiti because you done got the land? Sure, that makes sense. You still hanging around in Jamaica because you done got the land? Sure, that makes sense. You still hanging around in Bahamas because you done got the land? Sure, that makes sense. But if you still hanging around and ain't nothing changed, yeah, I mean, where was the authority ever? Like, where was the authority? SK says, Kimathi, Marshal and Commander-in-Chief, Defense Council, Land of Freedom Army, said the white man lives off propaganda. Yeah, so that's Dedin Kimathi from Kenya. Yeah, white man. Well, I'm guessing you mean Kenya, right? But yeah, white man lives on. I mean, propaganda is one of the most important tools of warfare. In fact, you know, there was this paper that Altamax wrote where he says 3 stages of war. He landed on the 3 stages of war. I can't remember the second one or the third one, actually, at this point. But one of the most important is with the first stage, he said, was propaganda. You know, if you can get the people, like propaganda, I define it in this book and I define it in the other book. But if you can get the people to, and it's one of the definitions is in this quote section, but I don't know where exactly. But if you can get the people to look at themselves, look at their own people as enemies, you won. If you can make them look at their own enemies as allies, you won. You don't need to fight them. You know? I mean, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it this way. You got a group of black folk living together in squad. Okay? Right? You're a white person making them in squad. Okay? If you could convince black folk in building A to fight with black folk in building B, they kill each other off. How many people do you lose as a white person? How many people do you lose as a white person? Now here's the alternate situation. If black people in building A and black people in building B said, let's fight this white boy, how many people do you lose? So you gotta make a calculus. Right? Do you lose more people when your enemies are fighting themselves? Or do you lose less people? Right? Or do you lose more people when they're fighting you? Because you don't lose anybody when black folk kill each other. So what do? You convince them to kill each other. And so we might say, hey, look at this. Why are they giving us this stupid rap music? Why are they giving us this? You know, why are they making this commercial? We are such a proud people. The reason why they do that, is because if they don't, then they have to sacrifice their own people. They have to lose their own people. They have to defend themselves. Now they don't have to defend themselves. They just put you on the freaking television. Kofi says, I was reading Asafo and Saw Baruti's African classic book list. Would be interested to hear yours. I outlined that in if you guys have the Book of Power, it's toward the back I have some books. Some of the books were not printed and I don't plan on printing them. So I would have added Garvey and Garveyism to that list. But otherwise, like, that's pretty much the list. I don't remember off the top of my head. And the thing is that if I look through it on the PDF while I'm online, it kind of like defeats the point. So, but I'll try to maybe look it up a little bit later. So, education transcends natural philosophy, otherwise it's miseducation, right? So natural philosophy is just something I was thinking of. That's basically scientific thinking. Anyway, general rule of warfare. So these are collected from Machiavelli, right? The white boy. So he says, it is difficult to overcome those who know how to recognize their forces and their enemies, and easy to overcome those who don't. That's what I just said. This is the propaganda thing I was talking about. It is difficult. This is how white people are thinking. White people read this book. This is The Art of War by Machiavelli. White people read this book. Machiavelli is a very important historical figure in the white imagination for a long, long time. And so what he says, this is passed down wisdom from, unknown sources, anonymous sources, just passing down wisdom. And the passed down wisdom that they gave, and it could have been from Africa, could have been from Europe, could have been from Asia, it doesn't matter. The point is that the wisdom is this, that it is difficult to overcome those who know how to recognize their forces and their enemies. If you know how to recognize your enemies and who your people are, it is difficult to overcome you. But it's easy to overcome those who don't. I'm telling you, this is why I tell you, get this book and review it with your family, review it with your friends, because this is really important stuff that you're missing out on. It is difficult to overcome those who know how to recognize their forces. This is the propaganda I was just talking about. When this white boy comes to, he puts us in the hood, puts some people in the apartment, because I'm telling you, this is a true story. I eventually, in my organization, we had this community center. There was a community center already there, and so we just went there and we ran some programs there. And this sister I saw, she was like, I want to go back to the shelter. She wants to go back to the shelter. Why does she want to go back to the shelter? Because in the apartment that she got from like winning the lottery and getting, subsidized housing and all that stuff, in the apartment she got, there were bullets coming through her window or at the house because a building across the street had youth who decided to shoot up the youth in the other building because they were from different buildings. So if these youth are saying, hey, you know what? It's not the white system that made us this way. It's this other person coming onto my territory. This other person selling drugs nearby. This other person going into my customer bank. Or this other person just existing. If they see this other black person, they are much easier to overcome. Because even the sister now, she's like, hey, you know what? My people are the freaking enemy. I'd rather go back to the shelter. I'd rather go and I'd rather live with white folk. You put on the TV how white folk living. Safe. That's your impression. I'd rather live in another area. I'd rather not have nothing to do with black people. That's what they're saying. Don't soundbite me on that. Some of y'all are wicked. You understand? All right. No, I'm joking. I have no accent. Yeah. So, so he says he'd be interested. SK says false geniality is the modern day propaganda. I gotta look up the word geniality. I wish, I usually have a pretty good vocabulary. By the way, everybody, I'm really progressing. Oh yeah, the quality of having a friendly and cheerful manner. So I'm really progressing in my weight loss, but it involves me eating a lot less. So if I sound a little off, it's because I'm purposely, eating a little less just to get my stomach down, and just for the end of the year. So hopefully I'll be back in January. But yeah, so far I'm not eating as much. But technically I used to eat too much. But all right, let's go. People need images. Look at this. People need images. Understand this. People need images. This is another one of those ancient African ideas, right? People need images. Lacking them, they invent idols. Better than to found the images on realities that lead the true seeker to the source. You have to understand this. If you don't, you're not grasping this. You're not grasping this. People need images. You need a concept of masculinity. You need a concept of femininity. And if you, as an African people, do not provide it, people will cling to something else. They need one. You understand? The girl whose father abandons her, right? She needs a father figure. And she's going to look for it somewhere. It could be in a boyfriend. It could be in a girlfriend. It could be in a police officer. It could be in a judge. It could be she needs this image. You have to provide your people with images. Remember when I told you guys that I think it was that was the last podcast, but there was a podcast where I read something the distinguish between recruiting soldiers and training them. And I said that I used to start everything with an image, right? And so I just had this like cheesy image or whatever. But I used to start everything with images because people need images. It's not that they want images; they need images. And if you're not providing them, other people they will find these images somewhere. And the thing is this white boy is readily giving you those images. He's like, hey, what are great countries? Or what are great, like you'll have many black folk be like, hey, what are great systems of government? Democracy. Or what are great economic models? Socialism and capitalism. And why do they say socialism and capitalism? Why do they say democracy? Because every fucking second, I don't want to curse, but every second you guys say, we should have our own economic systems besides from capitalism and socialism. You never name it. You never give a name. You never say a different political system. You say we should have our own political system based on our own indigenous. You never say what political system. And so you give them nothing. You just say you just say for the last 100 years. We should have our own alternative thing. We should look into our own alternative. You say that for the last century. And meanwhile, this white boy has been aggressively drilling in everybody democracy, capitalism, socialism, Marxism, communism. There are names to this stuff. There are names, there are ideas, there are bodies of work, there are libraries to this stuff. And you still get to give anything. So I say, I try to do differently. I say, hey, look, Uncobia. Let's do Uncobia. Right? That's what I do. Because I say, look, you don't have anything, just name something. Put a name to it. But it doesn't catch on. You know, it doesn't catch on. It doesn't proliferate. It doesn't continue. And that's it. They invent idols. You know, you say, hey, you know, if people, you know, one thing Marcus Garvey said, I don't really agree with this, but he says people are religious and people need religion, right? But let's say I agree with Garvey on this point, right? He says, look, let's say we say people need religions, and lacking them, they invent religions, or not necessarily invent religions, but they go to some religion, right? This is the thing that you're seeing, you know? If there's this idea of divinity and divines and so on and so forth and all that kind of stuff, you have to provide that image too. See what happened in Kemet was that they didn't just say, hey, you know what, instead of following because the Christians, you know, took it from them, but still, instead of saying, hey, instead of following the Christians, we should, or even let's do it more realistically. The Greeks were actually at one point following the ancient Egyptian religion, you know, the Kemetu religion, and then they said, no, you know what, we're going to change it. We're going to change it and suit it to our own people. We're going to put our own names on these things. Instead of saying Amun, we're going to say Zeus. Instead of saying Dionysius, we're going to say whoever it was there, you know, Apollo or whatever, right? They did that. And the Romans said, hey, you know, instead of doing what the Greeks are doing, we're going to name Mercury and Venus and Mars and all that kind of stuff. They did that because they understood that the people had a need for that thing. And so our ancestors didn't say, hey, you know what, instead of having Christianity and Islam, we should, no, they just did it. They said Olodumare. You know, they said Abasom. They said Natural Root. They said whatever. I don't business, you know. Let's go to the next one. SK says so true. Oh no, sorry. Walter Wilder says SK is so true. Bit of Medicine says it's important to name your thing. I say that all the time. You gotta name stuff. Shout out to Bit of Medicine podcast, by the way. Learning Curve, and of course the Harsh Reality podcast. We're all part of the KWZ network. And of course, if you want to be a part of the KWZ network, just hit us up. You know, for the new year, you know, come through, be a part of the podcasting community, and maybe, you know, if this inspires you, like you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to do images. I'm going to promote black images every week of 2022. Then come through, you know? And it's really nothing to it. There's really nothing to it. I mean, like, we might be on spaces together and just communicating with each other. So that's like a win-win, right? When the axe entered the forest, the tree said, "Look, the handle is one of us." Now, sometimes I think of this as the mixed race people, so on and so forth. But it could also just be the Africans with the white mind. You come to the forest like you're a tree, right? You come to the forest like you're a tree, but you're an axe. And then the thing that we have to realize as people is that the forest is a good analogy for a community. If you guys don't remember, it's a quote later on in this same book, but in the same sort of, not this section, but another section, maybe psychology or something, or ideology. But the idea is that a tree, what trees do is that they stand over and protect, or they get the sunlight, right? But they also drop seeds, and they kind of stand over, like if it's raining and the seeds can be washed away or whatever, right? They kind of shield the seeds until they grow, and then drop their seeds, and so on and so forth, and they keep proliferating. So what happens is that's what you do. You protect your children until they're big enough, and then they protect their children. You understand? That's the tree life. Now the axe does not do that. The axe comes to cut down trees, comes to destroy the family, destroy the community, right? And yet, notwithstanding that, instead of identifying somebody as a tree who's looking after the children, who's protecting, who's giving, shade, or who's providing life for the world around them, instead of looking at that, you're looking at them and saying, "Hey, you're brown skin." You understand? You got bark, all right. You bark, all right. No, well, you get what I'm saying. You look at the tree like that, and you say, and then while they're butchering you, while they're cutting you down, you're still like, "Hey, but that's family." I know that was a damn good analogy. You gotta give me my round of applause. All right. Actually, it looks like everybody leaving. Like, I don't like that. All right. Not the greatest master can go even one step for a disciple. A disciple must experience each stage of development, developing consciousness, therefore knowing nothing that is not ripe. So the thing was this, and I did change the translation from like he, so on and so forth. But the idea is this, that you can't go one step, no matter how great an instructor you are. You can't teach anybody. Everybody must experience the stages of developing consciousness on their own, and they will not know anything that they're not ripe to know. I can't teach, like, all right, let's say vector calculus, right? I know vector calculus. I can't teach you vector calculus without teaching you calculus or vectors. I can't teach you vectors without teaching you Cartesian coordinates. All right, I shouldn't say Cartesian coordinates, but the XY coordinates, right? Or the XYZ coordinates. I can't teach you the XYZ coordinates without you knowing addition and subtraction. Okay? I can't do that. With calculus, I can't teach you that without you knowing multiplication at least. Okay? Without you knowing division at least. Okay? I can't teach you these things. You have to be ripe for each stage. I'm not going to just jump into vector calculus with you. You understand? Like, I'm trying to teach my kid multiplication right now. I said, here, look, here's this double-digit multiplication. Right? And he's just like, So then I'm like, okay, here's double-digit multiplication. No, double-digit multiplied against single-digit. And he's like, okay, this is a little more manageable. Right? He's still like, but it's a little more manageable. He got single-digit multiplication, but the double-digit multiplication, or the 2 and 1 multiplication, just like, it's just not as automatic, because it involves, the addition, adding different places and all that kind of stuff. And that's just something to teach. But again, that's another thing, like tens places and single places and ones places and 100 places. These are things that you have to know in order to be ripe. And this extends to this African consciousness that we're doing. This is why I have the pro-black compendium. Somebody once told me, hey, Book of Power is good, but you got to read other books before you read it. And they're saying other authors. And I'm like, no. You don't actually have to read other authors. You're supposed to get the pro-black compendium first. You understand? Because they skipped over it. Because I promote in the Book of Power. Because I think the Book of Power is excellent. But they're like, yeah, when I read, if I read, after I read this author, that author, then, the Book of Power makes a little more sense. It's a beginner. Like Book of Power is better for the beginning. But this is it. You want to read this stuff first so that you understand this thing. So this is another piece of wisdom from the ancient world. This is another one too. One can't be judge of one's neighbor's intelligence. One's oral vital experience is never one's neighbor's, right? So that's another thing to remember too, that you can't judge other people's intelligence because you don't actually have the same experience. And this is something that we tend to do. And this also extends back to that, well, why the white man wants to sit in the front of the freaking bus, right? 'Cause, like, you can't judge the guy for that because you don't have his experience. When we build up our nations, we're going to pat ourselves on the back and want to put our feet up. And when people come into our nation, and they say, yeah, I want to pat myself on the back and put my feet up too, we're going to say, wait a second. Where were you? Well, that's one of the things that I want to actually point out too, because I had this friend, I knew somebody in another country that said that their ancestors, their parents participated in the liberation of the country, right? And so when you participate in the liberation of a country, and this is something that goes back to even like feudal Europe, right? So it's just a known thing, right? But when you participate in the liberation of a country, you get land. You understand? Because you just took land from somebody else, so you get land, right? You get land, you get wealth, because you just took the land and the wealth from somebody else. And then it goes to the people who won. And so, in Europe, these were called nobles. These were called lords, right? Like if you won the war against you won the war for the British monarch and you got some land, the British monarch said, hey, I'm going to give you this land. And then now you have these peasants who didn't really win the war, didn't distinguish themselves in the battle, didn't command any military or army, so on and so forth, whatever. And they now work for the people who did. Or they work for the family who did. And this is something that, like I said, I know somebody in Africa who had that kind of situation where they're like, yeah, we're pretty well to do because we won the war. We won a war of independence. So now you got to remember this, that this white boy, the way how he looks at America is this. It was Native Americans who were here. It was the Amerindians who were here. And these white boys said, look, we're going to fight you and kill you and butcher you and slaughter you and we're going to give your land to our children. Right? And then here you come. You're a black person. And you're like, hey, man, I want to sit in the front of the bus. And he's like, no. Because, see, another thing is that my ancestors built this bus for my people to go some places. And sure, you may use it, but you ain't going to sit in front of me. You may use it, but I'm not going to stand up while you sitting down. The seed includes all the possibilities of the tree. This is important. The seed will develop these possibilities, however, only if it receives corresponding energies from the sky. And this is actually another important thing. This is to tell you that everybody has within them the possibilities of everything. They have the possibilities of everything. Now, I want to put an asterisk next to everything, right? I want to put an asterisk next to everything. But the way I want you to understand this is that, yes, white, like for instance, the argument before about white people, like either being Klansmen or not, right? Or like being genial or being Klansmen, right? They have the possibility to be Klansmen inside of them or genial inside of them. And it really corresponds to what energies they're receiving, the corresponding energies they receive. But, when you look at one of the things that, white people force us to study is World War II. When you look at World War II, the Germans were considered the most intelligent and civil and intellectual white people on the planet. Okay? And then this depression hit, right? Economics, economics, hit them. And this one rabble-rouser, who Marcus Garvey says, copied him. But there's one rabble-rouser comes through, Hitler, and he says, hey, look, you know what? Our problem are these other people. And these reasonable, intelligent, genial, nice, kind, if you will, right? White folk. Without any black people in sight, mind you, or very few black people in sight, turned villains. You understand? because they got the corresponding energies. And you have to realize that when you are in that predicament, or when you're in that situation of being minorities, right? Or when you're in that situation of not having as much power as a people, as a collective, as a group, as an organization, when you are in that position, you can suffer. All right, we must learn to increase our own sense of responsibility and the fact that everything we would do will have its consequences. So I'm going to try to rush through. This is my basis for thing. So, red black gentleman. Only says that you are one of a kind. I admire your work. You are a grand black man. True, that's what I'm talking about. Ruth Franklin said something, but I think it got deleted. So, shout out to Bit of Medicine for that. Although I don't know what it was, so I can't say. But yeah, you must learn to. But thank you, appreciate it. You guys are all inspiring, and I appreciate this sort of messaging, because sometimes you just say to yourself, why am I doing this? In fact, I should tell you guys this. I'll tell you this. I'm reading this puzzle book, and I want to make this puzzle book, and I'm like, I'm gonna make it pro-black, right? I'm gonna make it pro-black, and I'm like, but I know it's not gonna sell. And some people are like, hey, why don't you make it pro-white? Oh, not pro-white, but why don't you make it white? Make it a bigger general audience. And I know that would sell better. You understand? Now, of course, everybody has the ability to do both. It's not like you could only do one anyway. But it's just shameful, because if you open up a book, I have these puzzle books that white people make, right? In fact, I have one right in front of me. I'll show you guys. Well, I can't show it to you, but there's everything is like, they make it blatantly pro-white. Like, one of them is Animals of Canada, all about Churchill. So they're going to give you things about Churchill, army officer, artist, Clementine, conservative, historian, so on and so forth. They got Himalayan animals. Oh, they got some other stuff. But biblical cities, Golan, Jazer, Jericho, so on and so forth. Cambodia, they got Cambodia, I guess. Rhymes with Tail, New York subway. Point is that they put in their book, like anything, they can always be pro-white. They don't have to say, is it going to be economically viable? Is it going to be economically viable if I mention Churchill? But see, me, I'm like, is it going to be economically viable if I mention Amenhotep IV? And the reason is not to do with white folk. It has to do with our people. Do we patronize our own? Because if you ask me how many books I've sold this month, you understand? Like I tell you, I was shocked and appalled, But I appreciate at least the verbal approval. That's always good. So anyway, we must learn to increase our sense of responsibility and the fact that everything we do will have its consequences. This is actually just what I was saying. This is what I'm talking about. And that's what I'm saying about these quotes, is that they correspond to your life. It doesn't. You can read it again and again and again and again, and each time you can have a different response. But it's like, this is what it is. We have a responsibility to support our own people, and the consequence of not doing so is that our people, like, we say, okay, well, maybe I could, do some white shit. No black person should think that. But at the same time, you say to yourself, well, if you don't want black, like, it's like market pressure. You are the market. If the market says, hey, you know what? What's selling is white stuff. Like I remember I was talking to somebody and they said, white women are the people buying puzzles, buying word hunt. So you would make something for white women. You understand? And now here I am, a black man, black radical, a black thinker, African man, proud African man. And I have to, and it's being suggested to me very eloquently and intelligently that make something for these white women. And it's like, and of course, I mean, like I said, you could do both, but all the same, it's like, it's shameful that somebody should even think of doing both. Anyway, so knowledge, wisdom, and love are weapons against ignorance, error, and malice. That's another one. Just in general, that you use knowledge against ignorance, wisdom against error, and love against malice. That was a core tenet. So this is another one. The schools we go to are reflections of the society that created them. Nobody is going to give you the education you need to overthrow them. That's common sense. Nobody is going to teach you your true history, teach you your true heroes, if they know that that knowledge will help set you free. Schools in America are interested in brainwashing people with Americanism, giving them a little bit of education and training them in skills needed to fill the positions the capitalist system requires. As long as we expect America's schools to educate us, we will remain ignorant. This was a Sadish Accord. This was a Sadish Accord like 50 years ago or 40 years ago or whatever, right? And you still do this. And I'm not going to say that the homeschooling is that easy. I'm not going to say homeschooling is that fun. I'm not going to say that it's easy to do homeschooling, you know? But what I will tell you is that taking the easy route, taking the easier route is not going to advance you. It's not going to advance you. And these people do not want you to advance. They don't want their own people to advance. Like this like I said, this applies to white people and black people. You know, they're going like the white laboring class is going to be brainwashed into believing in Americanism, and they're going to have a little bit of education to become laborers for the capitalists. They're not going to get any capital. And sometimes you guys sit down and say, hey, they should teach us business acumen. They should teach us how to make businesses. And so. Why would they teach you that? Why would they teach you that? They want laborers. Leave those in error who love their error. So that's another thing. It's like, don't even debate people. If somebody likes being wrong, just leave them. Leave them. There's this other quote. It's not really, I don't know if it's African proverb or not. They say, from a distance, you can't tell who's the fool. Like, if a smart person debates a dumb person or an intelligent person, from a distance, nobody can tell who's who. Like, you just look silly. Like, if I say that, no, the FBA is not blah, blah, blah. Like, or a black woman doesn't like black man, and you're just like, yeah, that's not blah, blah, blah. All right, let's keep going. Those who accept Western values absolutely find their creative faculties becoming so warped and stunted that they are almost completely dependent on external satisfactions. And the moment that they become frustrated in their search for these, they begin to develop neurotic symptoms to feel that life is not worth living, and in chronic cases, to take their own lives. This is Paul Robeson, so that means 100 years ago, okay? He's like, hey, look, you know what? Western values make you want to be suicidal. And you know who has a high suicidal rate? Black people. They say black boys, black men, but black people in general, And it's partly because of the Western values. And a lot of other countries, there's not even, suicide is not even a thing, really. I mean, I couldn't say per se, because I don't really know this per se. I don't know this anymore. But, yeah. I'm also getting ridiculously hungry. So, Oni's here. Sorry. So, if Africans identify as Americans, so look how old this is. This is like an old-ass book. But I still had this there. And this is like an old-ass pamphlet. Probably like 2013 or something. You know what I mean? Like, this is an old-ass pamphlet. And I still had this. So, if Africans identify as Americans, why would they care about Africa? So that's me just like telling you in advance that, real black gentleman. Oh, no, okay, somebody else did it. All right, so Walter Wilder says, maybe you can write a book on how African mythology and mathematics connect with each other. I would have to study that. Grace Strickland had something deleted, and Real Black Gentleman removed something. But let's see. If Africans identify as Americans, why would they care about Africa? And this is like really the common sense. I think in another part of this book, I pointed out that if we identify as Americans, and America went to war with Africa, whose side would African Americans be on? And obviously most of the times they're on America's side because that's their nation. But again, why would you, if you identify, and and I want to point this out too. You don't just want to go to the identity, because again, you look at this quote unquote black American, this African American, and he's been indoctrinated in America for 20 years. He's been indoctrinated in America for 20 years with Americanism and all that kind of stuff. And so, the idea that they would be loyal to Nigeria or Rwanda when they don't even know it, they've never been to it, they've never even seen it, right, is actually preposterous. And I mean, until you give those images, because a lot of us woke up with images. Okay, a lot of us woke up with images. A lot of us woke up with experiences. You know, if you're not propagating it, then what do you want me to tell you? And of course, the last quote. This is Oni again. It says the function of propaganda is to identify the target's forces and enemies. Okay, the target's forces and enemies. So when you give propaganda to somebody, right, the goal is to identify their forces and their enemies. Who are their enemies? Who are their forces, right? And what white folk do is that they give the propaganda so that you would be confused about who your forces are, who your enemies are. You know, and this is one of the things that the socialists are doing that too. They're like for instance, you know, like the socialists are doing this, but they say, hey, you know what? Your enemies are the capitalists, and your allies are the working class. You understand? And now if you're in America, the working class is predominantly white. You understand? So it was a racial battle because, or not even just a racial battle, but you're living this racialized experience where realistically, I want you to be clear about this. You're in somebody else's nation. Okay? You're in somebody else's nation. So that's your problem. Right? I'm talking about people in America. You're in somebody else's nation. And by the way, I want to say this though. The reason why the Pro Black Compendium was good, and it's really good in fact, but it was a little more American-centered. I'll admit that. Right? That's why I'm really critical of people who are American-centered because I got it too. You know what I mean? I got bit by that bug as well. But the thing is this, that your problem is that you're in somebody else's nation. So even if you develop the infrastructure here, if they let you develop the infrastructure here, you're developing the infrastructure for another people, right? You're providing services for another people. You're laboring and you're enriching another people's capitalists, not your own capitalists. Not your own capital, not your own landowners, not that. You're enriching somebody else's landowners. You're somebody else's nation. Either way, what happens is that you come with the propaganda and the socialists is like, hey, the working class. You know? Everybody has something. The Christians are like, hey, you know, it's not black and white, it's Christians and atheists. You understand? The propaganda is to confuse you. That's the function. It's either to confuse you or to get you on the right path. And so I want you guys to understand this is a good book. This is the Pro Black Compendium. The Book of Power is also good. All these books are great. And definitely you can check them all out on Amazon. Other than that, make sure you tune in to the podcast. Subscribe, like, share. Appreciate your time and your energy. And I hope to hear from you guys again. If you like this review, let me know. We can do this again. But other than that, I appreciate the moment you shared with me. And until next time, Shem Hotep, Anku Ja, Seneb Neb, Amen, Ma'at, Dua Necha.